So I brought with me some people from DSS. They're going to go through a PowerPoint about temporary assistance, our caseload, and what that means. And then we have applications for you guys to look at and actually see what it takes to apply for temporary assistance. So with me is Carolyn Verkler, and she put together the PowerPoint. She's our principal examiner. Carolyn thinks she's retiring in October of this year, so after 35 years at DSS. Next to her is Tracy Pate. She'll be talking about child support. Sandy Lane is our part-time fraud investigator, so we roped her in to come down and talk about the fraud aspect of temporary assistance. Amanda Waugh is the senior social services program examiner assigned to our TA unit, so she supervises the TA examiners. And then Lisa Hetzner, who you know is our one-stop manager, but Lisa is also a domestic violence liaison at the department, and she's also the head of the employment unit. So outside of the one-stop, DSS has employment unit requirements as well. So Carolyn's up.
Come up with the lobby.
On up, right?
Why not?
So I'm going to do the little presentation first, and then we're going to pass out temporary assistance applications and kind of walk you through a TA interview and everything that is needed. Okay? Okay, so our TA caseload, like Jenny said, I'm Caroline Verkler, the principal examiner, and I don't know how to run this.
I think the right click is for the to go next.
Okay. So our temporary assistance staff consists of 1 community services worker, 3 social services program examiners, 1 senior program examiner, which is Amanda, and myself, and I'm the principal social welfare examiner. So besides handling our TA caseload, they also handle a variety of emergencies. Homeless people, evictions, shelter arrears, car repairs, moving storage expenses. Sometimes we even buy bus tickets to move people back to where they came from or where they would like to go if they end up here in Lewis County. This graph shows the transactions. Years ago, our TA caseload was very high, over 400 cases back in 1995. But this graph goes from 2013 to present, so you can see the number of transactions that we do on cases has gone down over the years. Right now we have 83 active temporary assistance cases. And like I said, years ago it was really high, and it started to shift in 1996 and 1997 with these 2 acts. I don't know if you've heard about the Personal Responsibility Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, PROWRA, we call it. And then the New York State Welfare Reform Act in 1997. This shifted the focus of the public assistance programs to being an entitlement to personal responsibility and self-sufficiency. So the changes with PROWRA, it provided TANF block grant funding to states, ending the public assistance as an entitlement like it used to be. It required states to meet work participation rates. It established time limits, and it supported personal responsibility, self-sufficiency, and work. The Welfare Reform Act did a lot of the same things, replaced the old Aid to Dependent Children program with family assistance, replaced the old home relief program with safety net assistance, and it also established time limits. Any of you remember ADC and home relief?
Mm-hmm.
The New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, you'll hear us call it OTDA, they're the state agency that administers the TA program. So within TA are 2 programs. Family assistance is for families, households with minor children or pregnant women, and safety net assistance is for our single individuals with no kids. So local districts are responsible for designing our programs and delivering the programs to our people.
Jenny, before we change from that slide, the reimbursements rates for each of those.
She references it later.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know it offhand.
I think it's 75 for one and
She has a
Yeah. So for time limits, so when welfare reform started, we thought, oh great, there's going to be time limits. Family assistance, adults are limited to 60 months in their lifetime. We soon found out that that wasn't the end of that. Once this limit is reached, the individuals must be moved to non-cash safety net assistance. The time limits for safety net are 24 months, and once again, if they reach the 24 months, they're moved to non-cash. So what that means is we restrict their payments for them. We restrict out their rent and pay it to their landlord. We send the electric company their money. We pay their fuel bills for them. And only if there's anything left do they get any cash. Here's the reimbursements. So TANF program costs, family assistance are reimbursed at 100% federal monies. Safety net programs, where we get into the money, they're reimbursed at 29% state monies, leaving 71% for the local share. I asked Sheila, our fiscal person, to come up with some dollar amounts. So in 2018, $506,000 was spent on our TANF programs. $295,000 was spent on safety net. This totals $802,000. So $506,000 was federal share, $85,000 state share, $209,000 was local share. So these are program costs only and not administrative costs. So this is what our caseload looks like right now. So as of March, we have 83 cases. Family assistance, we have 48 of those, and safety net, we have 35. Of those 83 total cases, 45 of them are for children only. So they may be living with their parents who get SSI, or we call them non-parent caregivers. They might be living with grandparents, an aunt and uncle, or even people that aren't related that are taking care of them. So 45 are for kids only. The other 38 are for families or single people. Okay. Right now, we have 5 of them currently in drug and alcohol facilities, which is down. Just a few months ago, we had about 12 of them in drug and alcohol facilities.
So what happens then when they're in drug and alcohol?
We have to pay for their stay there.
Who does?
The county.
The county pays for their
Yeah,
stay?
their safety net.
We pay 71% of those.
71% of their stay.
And it's about $1,200 a month.
What?
It's about
$1,200 a
$1,200 a
month.
month, just in a drug and alcohol facility.
And then when they get out, they can go right back into the program, the temporary
You wanna
assistance.
talk
Once they
about
get
that,
out
Amanda?
of drug and alcohol, usually what happens is at that point they're able to work, so then they become self-sufficient at that point. Once the facilities work with them on finding housing and work with them until they're able to work their drug and alcoholics to a point where they're going to be able to work in society again.
But they got there before when we were paying their way then.
Correct. So sometimes drug court mandates people to go into drug and alcohol facilities because they've gotten in trouble, and then part of their court order is to go into drug and alcohol rehab.
But prior to them getting put in the facility, we're paying for them to
Maybe
utilize.
not.
Mm-mm.
Maybe not.
How did they get to be drug and alcoholics or
They
drug
could be
addicts?
working, lost their job, they could be on SSI, it could be a whole number of reasons. They may not be on public assistance. Many times the application for public assistance comes because they were put in a drug and alcohol treatment facility.
Okay. Right now, out of our 83 cases, we have 7 cases with people that are employable. One of them is sanctioned for not complying with drug and alcohol requirements, and we'll talk about some of those requirements in a little bit. Okay.
I got a question for you though. You got up there back in 1995, there were 420.
Yeah, before welfare reform.
Okay, and then, so how many, at that point, how many KTA workers were there then?
Oh, I'd have to look back.
It was
So-
generic caseload, right?
Not always, not always.
It's 5 or 6.
Oh, we used to have probably 200 people on our caseload. We had high caseloads back then. We had a lot of people that were working back then. They still had the drug and alcohol requirements back then, no time limits. This slide shows the income, mostly the income guidelines, income and resources. So really for a household of one, the state sets these allowances. So a household of one can get $406 each month to pay all their bills. Can you imagine having to pay your rent, your lights, your heat with $406? They'd also get SNAP benefits, covers their food, but not their paper products. So all that needs to come out of $406. Then I did a family of 4, they have $889 budgeted, allotted to themselves. Okay. The state, like I said, the state comes up with these figures. The shelter allowances were last updated in 2003, so we do again.
Greg, you couldn't be a legislator because you wouldn't have enough money to buy gas.
Yeah, really. But what's the resource limit? What's that?
So $2,000, if you're age 60 or older, then it's $3,000. Can be money in the bank.
Look at bank accounts.
Is that monthly or
No, total.
Your assets.
their total assets of
looking at what
2,000?
Including your house?
Nope, if you own your home, no, we're gonna put a lien on your home.
Well,
You don't wanna do that.
no, not today.
If you have any 4-wheelers, 8 snow sleds sitting around.
Well,
Sandy will talk about what she does for resources.
so how do you, let's say somebody gets in trouble and they don't have any income and they have a house and they have a car and stuff. How do you get them down to $3,000 before you can start giving them money?
You can't.
It's temporary
Yeah,
assistance.
look at it even that way, you can't come down.
Yeah.
You know, if your resources are over, it's actually $2,000, because it only goes to $3,000 once you hit age 60. So if you're over the $2,000, you're not eligible. Like for vehicles, we do disregard $12,000 off the value of that vehicle as long as it's on the road. So for vehicles, we can usually work with them and get them under the 2,000. It's hard. It is
I
hard.
would say.
So I think sometimes it's frustrating when you hear all these people that are on assistance. Our caseload, you know, they're not living very well. They're doing bare minimum with what they're getting. Because if you even look at the shelter allowance, you know, on a household size of 1, you figure average rent is $500. We put that in the budget for them, but it stops. The state stops giving them money after $152. And they got to use that $406 to put towards, we say, shelter is your number 1 priority.
And it's a maximum of 5 years too.
We are working on a shelter supplement plan for our safety net people, so that's in the works. To be able to give them extra money.
The key word is temporary.
Yes.
There you go.
Designed to be short-term to help short-term help available for eligible families towards self-sufficiency.
Do they get a cell phone?
Yes, they can.
And that,
We don't give them.
So
No, we don't give them out. We don't give them out, but yes. So these are some of the requirements, and we'll talk more about them.
They can have a cell phone, but it's not part of the program, right?
Not part of our program, but if people receive any of our programs, they're eligible for one. Temporary assistance, SNAP, HEAP, they can get a cell phone.
they have to figure out a way to pay for it. Or use a ride.
The plan includes so many minutes in texts a month, I believe.
SafeLink includes how many minutes?
What's that?
It's called SafeLink. So I don't even know how many minutes they get
Yeah,
out, because it's not our program.
So it's another program.
It's another program.
That's how they got it.
So these are some of the requirements, and we'll talk more about them as we go through the interview process. But they need to meet income and resource guidelines. If they're able to work, then they need to look for work. If they're not able to work, they need to keep their medical appointments. need to cooperate with our investigations, drug and alcohol requirements. They need to cooperate with our child support unit. If they have domestic violence, they'll see a worker and maybe we can do some waivers for them. If they own their home or property, we need to file a lien. People also need to be finger imaged, and that's to see if they're receiving any benefits in another state.
What's the drug and alcohol requirements?
So we'll talk about that in a few minutes when we go through the interview.
Who determines able to work or unable?
And Lisa will talk about that when we get to that part.
Okay.
So let's pass out the applications. So we wanted to give you a visual to see what people have to fill out when they come in. So these are our temporary assistance applications.
Which you can assume.
Those qualify. You'll qualify. Shortly.
Thank you, Christian.
You're welcome.
Feels like it some days.
Okay, so this is where the other girls are gonna come in.
And if you're not gonna apply, we ask you to give them back to us so we can distribute them.
Yeah. One thing that is
So don't
really
write
interesting
down.
though,
I was gonna start filling it out.
is
You can start if you want. Your auto ship to us, you get cases of
Yeah.
forms.
So I'm gonna let Amanda start with what happens when someone comes in for a TA.
So a lot of the stuff in that packet is information that gets handed out, but this gray packet is actually the application that you would need to fill out when you apply for temporary assistance. It is 27 pages long. So what it does is our community services worker that we have in our unit is the one that will first meet with them to go through and make sure everything is filled out. The interview time takes about 2 to 3 hours by the time, depending on your situation. Once you meet with all the different units, it is not a short process.
Do you give this to them to work on, or do you sit with them and go through it?
If they're able to do it themselves, then they would fill it out themselves. But some of our people, they do need help, so we will help them when they need that. So our community services worker will go through, make sure everything is completed in full. If you are applying for family assistance, so that's the cases that have the children, we have 30 days to process this application and make a determination whether or not you're eligible or you're not eligible. If you are a safety net person, someone without the children in your household, you have a 45-day wait from the date we receive this application. So they do not even receive benefits back to the application date. It only goes from that 45th day forward. And that gives them time to get in compliance with the employment unit, drug and alcohol, child support if that's needed, if there's spousal support as well. One of the first things we do when they apply is we do have another form that I did not bring with us, but if you are a victim of domestic violence, we want to make sure that anything we require of you is not going to put you in danger. So then we have them meet the DDL.
There's usually 3 of us on staff at DSS that can act as a liaison, and the interview can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, because if you're working with a victim of domestic violence and they're recounting for you what's happened for them, that's a very emotional experience on top of the trauma of having to come in. So if they do not have an order of protection with them, which is going to automatically make them eligible for a waiver, then they can do a signed statement saying I'm a victim, and it's self-attestation, and we don't ask for proof. And then our job is to decide and work with them. There's a couple of different waivers for the temporary assistance requirements. So like one of them was the lien. If getting a lien is going to put you at risk with your spouse, you could do a spousal waiver. You could do one on the lien. You can do one if your abuser goes to substance abuse counseling with you and it would put you at risk to show up. You could have a waiver for a temporary reprieve from having to do that requirement. But what we most often do is either child support or employment requirements. There's a lot that's happening when they come in, and at that time sometimes it's not in their best interest to have to take part either in going to court and establishing paternity or trying to determine if there's funds to pay for the children. So we will give them a waiver there, and it can be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, and then we reassess at that next recert appointment what it is.
Yep. Another part of our interview process is we look to see if the case has to be automatically referred to our investigations unit. To be an automatic referral, it would be all of our safety net cases. We will tell them right off the bat, an investigator's gonna make a visit to your home. They are just going to go through the application, make sure everything matches what you're telling us. Maybe things have changed, and I'll let Sandy talk about what checks they do.
Okay, we get the referral from the TA unit, and once we get that, we print off the application, we review it, so we know what we're looking at when we go out to do the home visit. Like Amanda said, the family assistance, we have to go out before the 30 days, so we try to do those within 7 days from receiving them. Safety nets, they have that mandatory 45-day wait, so we kind of sit on those a little bit to make sure they're complying with all the other units that they have to, because we don't want to waste our time going out if they're just going to be denied for not complying with everything. When we go out, we look at the home, we look at how they've been living, what they've been living off of, if they've recently lost a job, or if they've been, no one's been working for a year, you know, how have you been living, and you're just applying. We look for vehicles in the yard. They only report one on their application, but there's 3 parked in the driveway. Who are those? If they have plates on them, we run them through DMV to find out who the actual owner is. Because sometimes we'll go and there's a snowmobile, there's a motorcycle. They don't report that on their application. We come back and find out it's titled in their name, so that means they're the owner of it. So then we put a public value on it to see if it puts them over in resources. We also run DMV to make sure, like I said, to see what they have for vehicles. We make sure to see if they have a driver's license, because we want to know if they can make their appointments or things like that. If they're transporting children and they don't have a license, we want to know that too. We run unemployment checks on them to see if they're receiving unemployment benefits, or to see if they would be eligible possibly to sign up and receive benefits, so we might not have to put them on temporary assistance. The visits are unannounced, so we just show up on a whim during working hours. If they're not home, we will leave an appointment so we don't have to go out numerous times, so then they'll know that we'll come back. But you get a feel for what you can see on the outside a lot of times. When we go out, if there's other people in the home, we ask who they are, where do they live, you know, are they part of the household? We basically look for discrepancies with any part of the application. We like to wait a few days, you know, like I said, after they've applied, because their stories could change too. We can do in-office interviews with them if there's a safety issue. We don't have to go to their home, but to me, you don't get a true picture if you don't go out and see them. So we can do them in the office, or if we've been out to the home and they haven't been there and they're in to see their worker, we'll pull them in then because we already know where they're living and whatever. Let's see. Once our investigations are completed, they're signed off by our supervisor and are sent back to the TA unit to make a determination. We let them know if we find anything, you know, if they need further investigation into it. So in 2018, the fraud unit received 368 temporary assistance referrals. 132 were the front-end detections where it's mandatory that we go out and see them. 197 were back-end detections. That's when the case is already opened, and then they question something and we have to go out and see if there's any discrepancies or what it is. We did 15 daycare referrals and 24 eligibility verification reviews, and that's kind of, if they don't meet the safety net requirements and they want us to go out and see a family assistance, they would fall under that category. So 179 of the investigations were completed, because like I said, some were denied up front because they didn't comply. And total overpayment that we came up with just for the TA was $38,566.55.
So 38,000 was all the money that you spent in the TA program?
That was what we figured in overpayments that they weren't entitled to.
Oh, okay.
So how do you get that payment?
If the case is open, we would take 10% of their TA grant and put it towards that overpayment. If the case is closed, our accounting department will reach out and bill them, and then I believe it goes up to the, is it courthouse?
Yeah, then it comes to our office to collect if they haven't been able to work out a payment plan with them.
And Sandy, sometimes you do fraud referrals and arrests. So we can talk about that a smidge.
And if we find that they intentionally violated the program, lied on their application, they're working, they said, no, we're not working, you know, we question them and we find out they are working. We do have a agreement with the district attorney's office. Usually cases that are over $1,000 we take for an arrest. We look at each case, you know, we look at the circumstances surrounding them. Is it going to make somebody lose their job? Because we don't want people to lose their job. Are they gonna, you know, kids be taken away or whatever, something like that. We definitely don't want that. So each case is looked at, but usually over $1,000 we meet with Leanne and we review the cases, and then she's the one that decides whether she wants to prosecute them or not. So then they can also be prosecuted. Most of the time we're filing a false instrument or the dollar amount is over the $1,000. So we get money back that way because the court orders them to pay restitution. So.
Okay, so the next part, the next part that we do during the interview is we do child support. So if somebody is applying, say it's a 19-year-old that is called a kid, but not kids, but a young adult comes in, 19 years old, in New York State, their parents are responsible for them until they turn 21. So as long as there's not any safety concerns like order of protections going on, right off the bat we will say we are mandated to call your parents, and we give the parents the option of being able to, one, either extend their home to them or financially support them. If the parent says, yes, I'm willing to support my under 21-year-old child, then they're not eligible for temporary assistance. But in the case of maybe they aren't able to come home for whatever reasons, they would be able to apply for temporary assistance, and we would have them seek support against their parents. Now we have, you know, single moms, single dads that come in, and they have kids in their home that are under, you know, they have the absent parents. We also refer these cases to our child support unit so that they can, hopefully, the goal is to seek income to close this case. Child support is a valid source of income, especially if there's a working absent parent. And I'll let Tracy explain.
I think they're gonna hand out copies of our application. If the 27 page isn't enough, we have 8 more pages for them to fill out. And we come into play, like Amanda said, we're there trying to recoup the money back. If there's no current child support order, we will be seeking a new one. If there is already a current child support order, that just becomes payable to the department. And they're aware of all of that. They assign their rights over to the department in those cases. The applications, we get as much information as we can from the individual. If they're unsure as to where the absent parent is located, we have different avenues that we can use as far as tools in trying to locate these people. A lot of them may not have their social security number. They may have a age range that the person may possibly be. You would think they would know, but some people just don't know. So we have our mechanisms that we use to try to locate these people. Once we're informed that the client did open on cash assistance, we then will petition the court, the department, on behalf of the client. And we go into court and we seek these orders of supports on behalf of the department for the client. Our ultimate goal, like Amanda said, is to achieve a high enough order to possibly close this TA grant out. If once that order is in place, TA closes down the road, that money then does get payable to the client direct. We still, as child support, Lewis County Child Support, we still enforce the order for them, and payments would then be dispersed directly to the client. If at any time there are step parents involved, they are also considered absent parents. So if the court cannot require a large enough order from the biological parents, we will petition against the step parents also. And that's just the law. At that time, with all of the incomes and the orders, I mean, like I said, our hope is to close that TA grant out with these child support orders that we obtain.
Okay, and then drug and alcohol is another part of our interview. I didn't bring a copy for everybody, but there is 10 specific questions that we have to go over with each adult that applies for temporary assistance. If they mark yes or no, if they tell us yes, I've been in treatment in the past, it's an automatic referral to our Cradle Community Center. What they're gonna do is they have a further assessment that they do along with drug testing. And if there are some issues going on and that person needs additional treatment, it'll be part of their temporary assistance plan that they need to continue working with and being in compliance with drug and alcohol treatment. The top part are questions we ask the client. Sometimes we get told no on those, which would not warrant a referral, but there might be stuff we already know in our case record. We know that they've been arrested in the past for DWIs. Sometimes Sandy's unit can help us out with that information. Sometimes multiple employment sanctions is another thing that would be a referral. Being on temporary assistance for 48 months or more in their lifetime is another reason why we can send them. There may be a barrier for them to becoming self-sufficient. And then we also, so whether or not they say they're able to work or unable to work, in the application there is a page where it asks, are you able to accept a job today? It's a yes or no question. If they say yes, they see the employment unit and they'll work with Mr. Zaire on employment activities. If they say no, they're unable to work, whether it's drug and alcohol treatment, or they have mental health treatment, or they have a physical disability, they'll still see Lisa's department, and they will still need to do requirements, but in a different way for the disabled population.
So at this point, there's 3 pathways to my unit because, as Amanda said, Chris there sees both our clients that are employable. So if you're over 16 and not going to school, you're required to be treated like an adult. And you have to come to our unit and you have to take part in all the employment activities if we can't convince you to re-engage with school. He also sees all of those folks that are in treatment centers. So if they are unable to work due to their substance abuse, he also manages that caseload. And then John Monnet manages all those clients that are unable to work, that 40 that Caroline had referenced earlier. And so just to give you an idea, everybody that comes in has to go to an orientation. So you're coming back a week later, you're gonna learn, unless you're getting SSI or SSD or some sort of disability payment that makes you unable, or that makes you over income for temporary assistance, then you're expected to work towards rehabilitating yourself in order to go to work. So you'll learn, even if you're coming in as someone unable to work, all the things you're going to have to do when you're able to work. So everyone attends that. We do a basic TAPE test on them to see what education, reading, writing level they're at, so we have some idea. And then all of those that are able to engage in work activities, if they have some sort of an impairment, you can have a physical impairment, you can have a mental health impairment. That doesn't mean you can't work, you just may have to work differently. They're coming back every single week for as long as they're on temporary assistance. You see Mr. Zaire, the work requirement never goes away. It's never waived. You have to constantly be seeking work and looking for work. The amount of tasks that you get assigned to depends on whether or not you have additional impairments, but everybody's looking for work all the time. That is usually the one reason people end up either getting denied during the application process or ongoing. And then for Mr. Monet's caseload, once we've established, to kind of answer your question, that there is some sort of disability or impairment, they come and see him every other month, and then the opposite months he's calling, and he does that because we're required to check in and make sure that they're going to whatever medical appointments they have, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, PT, and there's a variety. So he's checking in, has anything changed, is there anything new going on? He asks them if they want to volunteer in the community, because we need to try to get them re-engaged. So he's doing that in order to help prep them for when they become able to work. And so when someone is unable to work, we give them a form called a 4526, and then those forms come to me, and then in my absence, Caroline will look them over, and we have to determine from the medical information the doctor's provided, can they go to work? I would say we're tough. So because I often use Fort Drum soldiers as an example. We have soldiers who have lost limbs, they show up to work every single day, that is a permanent disability, but they're working. So you have to prove that you really are unable to engage in any type of work in order to get temporary assistance, which is why there are very low numbers right now. There's a lot of work out there.
Okay, and then to wrap up the TA interview, they will meet with your TA examiner, who will just go over everything that they may have to provide. Proof of their income, proof of bank accounts, proof of titles. If they have liens, then we ask for the deeds to the property that they own. If they have property, this is just a tidbit of information. So if they have property that they do not live at, let's say they have a woodlot, they have, in order to be eligible for TA, they have to put that up on the market to sell. And they have 6 months to sell that property. If at the end of the 6 months they don't sell it, we close the case because technically they're excess resources and everything they've received in temporary assistance is an overpayment. And we will start the collection process at that point. So, and then, so if they open up, we don't stop working with them at that point. We do have weekly meetings, Thursday afternoons. The TA unit gets together with the employment unit with John and Chris, along with an adult services representative as well. And we case conference on the cases, on all of the applications we have going on all of the homeless clients. We case conference about them and any cases that are open, what's going on, what's not working, what needs to change. Just trying to get everybody back to being self-sufficient. In a nutshell, that's the TA application process.
So when someone comes in and they spend the 3 hours or whatever, do you give them assistance that day? Is there emergency
If there's
assistance?
emergencies,
Right.
we have to address emergencies
Right.
same day. So we have
Like
to
a
decide.
homeless person?
Yes.
You have an obligation, Jenny, to put them up somewhere, right?
For code blue.
If they.
Well, if it's below 32 degrees,
Right.
yes. If it's not, then it depends on whether they're eligible or not. So if they have thousands of dollars in the bank or
Right.
$200 in their pocket, we're not gonna help them with an emergency that day either.
Yeah.
But emergency is not a cash payment to the client. It is a payment to a shelter
Right.
or whatever it may be. So think about a domestic violence victim. They're likely coming in the next day after they were put in the shelter the night before. They could be battered and bruised, sexually assaulted, whatever it may be. They're coming over and applying for public assistance in order to pay for the shelter for Lewis County opportunities. So that's where the waivers come in. Perhaps we don't want to put them in danger right then. We want to make them safe until a safe plan can be worked out. So yes, we do cover emergencies. They referenced earlier EAFs, emergency assistance payments that they do. So if someone exhausts heat, they may be eligible for an EAF payment to get some fuel. That's handled in the same unit. Another EAF type, Amanda, help me out with some other EAF payments.
Evictions.
Evictions.
So somebody's lost a job, they've been out of work for the last couple months. Now they got a job, but they're not able to make the current month's rent plus, the last
Right.
2. We can help them get back on their feet. Just that one-time payment and then they're good to go.
I have a quick question, Jenny. So an individual being released from prison
Mm-hmm.
that day,
Yep.
is that considered an emergency situation then?
Yes.
Okay.
And then also,
But they don't get cash assistance. They'll get put in the shelter and they'll get an emergency SNAP benefit and that's
okay,
it.
that's it.
No cash. 45-day wait because they're probably singles.
And then, so you said job assistance. What is the age limit and is there an age limit or something like that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of kids that drop out, and then they come and they apply for TA and find out, one, they're gonna the unit's gonna contact their parents, or seek spouse, or seek support against their parents. And I'm saying you have to go to work, you have to look for work, we're gonna treat you just like everyone else over 18, and they have to do it. And coupled with that is they cannot work on their GED, cause their graduating class hasn't graduated, so they will have that additional barrier. They likely won't have a driver's license
She
or
means upper
transportation.
end, I
Oh,
believe.
both, I mean, both could.
Right, and it's different, it's not job assistance. What we do is because we're co-located obviously with the workplace, so all of those job opportunities that are available, that our workplace staff have available, are there. So Chris is working with Wendy and Travis But we don't sit down and help you apply for jobs. We'll get our workplace staff to help you with that, but we'll do resume preparation, generic applications, because a lot of people, they get nervous, they don't copy correctly, they don't spell correctly, and so some of those really common barriers, and we'll give them mock interview practice and things like that. Those that can go to work, usually we use that 45 days as a deterrent, and we try to get them to work, and if there's jobs available and they have skills, they usually don't open.
Right. And if they're over 60, there's no work requirements. Once you hit the age of 60, you still have to meet and do a general assessment like everyone else, but there's no attached job search because then we have you apply for Social Security.
That participation rate that Caroline referenced, we're still responsible even if they're not working, so we try to track anything they might be in, so we meet that participation rate. There's a lot of tracking with government, as you're familiar.
So Lisa referenced, like, if someone's disabled and attending appointments, I think it's important to note that they actually track every single person. Every month we get a progress report from every professional they're seeing. So if they're going to mental health, drug and alcohol, and a medical person, that's 3 reports for that one individual each month that we require. So all that information is constantly coming in and going back out, and redetermining whether, all right, so you broke your leg, oh, now your cast is off, do you need PT or can you go to work? So it's just constant.
And we're comparing, okay, so last month your report said this, but this month it says something different. Now do I need to get new medical? Are you doing better, or in fact are you worse? It's being able to compare comparatively where they're at in their cycle. So, and if they are not complying, please don't think for a minute that they aren't having a conversation with their worker about it, because they are. But they're given an opportunity to get into compliance, and that's what we're aiming for. It's not to penalize them, but to get them into the treatment that they need.
So are there other, methods of them attaining assistance other than the TA and the ones that you just talked about?
This is the only cash assistance program we have. We have SNAP benefits for food,
Okay.
and we have Medicaid for health insurance,
Okay.
HEAP for the fuel assistance.
Unless you're permanently disabled, then you're on social
SSI,
services. But that's
social
a
disability.
100% federal. No local.
And not eligible for us.
Right.
So is that more complicated than you anticipated about temporary
I would
assistance?
say less. I thought we had far more programs that people could fall into different categories. But it's probably changed since 1995 or 1996 when we had 421 on versus 83 now.
I think now over 95, 96, there's a lot more requirements, all this tracking and the work and the time limits. It's constant tracking mechanisms. And you even see in the SNAP, I've talked about the ABOD waiver. Now, if you're, have no children in your household, and you're on SNAP benefits, you only get 3 months out of 3 years, and then you're off SNAP benefits. So we already have people that are coming off SNAP benefits. They were on January, February, and March, and they're not working, and they're not looking for work, and not availing themselves. That means you're not eligible for a SNAP benefit anymore.
And
For 3 years.
And for TA too, so if someone's moving from Florida to Lewis County, we contact Florida State to see what their time limits are that they've used in Florida, because it carries from state to state.
So, how many people work up there? How many people do you have working up there?
In what unit?
Total employment.
I have 2 temps right now, but we're at 60. And that,
How
I
many
think
in the
60,
TA?
61.
3 examiners that run the program.
3 examiners run the program.
So what are the other, what I'm getting at, I guess, is, you don't take this the wrong way, because I think it's probably all the tracking that you have to do. So if you only have 83 people on assistance, and you have 60 people up there.
Well, we have about 1,800 child support cases. We have about 1,800 SNAP cases. We still have 3,000 Medicaid cases. We have 5,000
just gave you the
cases.
TA.
Well, that's what I was trying to
This is
figure
just
out.
the economic support.
This is
center
just the
house.
cash assistance payments for
Well, and this is just the economic support side of the house. We have a
Right.
whole
And then we have
other
Yeah,
side of the house.
not even
CPS
the
and-
whole.
Your adult protective, your child protective, social workers that go into homes. So that's.
Accountants
this is
that pay
kind
the
of only half
bills,
of what DSS does.
That's next month's,
If you want, yeah. I went on a home, when I first got here, I went on a home visit for OFA.
Well, you went with
not
adult
for OFA,
protective,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
for adult protective, but if you guys were ever interested in tagging along with one of our social workers, it's pretty eye-opening.
One comment I sometimes hear is, do we have a lot of people moving in from other counties to get cash assistance here because it's easier? It's not easier. And I would say, looking at the names on our roster, they're local. They've grown up here, they've gone to schools in Lewis County, they're local people. Every once in a while, we'll get someone from outside the area. Carolyn referenced, maybe we can help get you back to where you came from. Sometimes we do that. You know, I've run into women through I'm also a domestic violence liaison, and I've run into women, been in the shelter, coming into DSS to help pay for that shelter. They met some guy on the internet or whatever, came to Lewis County, and then they're a victim, and they've been injured. We'll help them get back home, back to where they came from, if it's safe to return. So, sometimes that comes into play.
And I think, you know, out of the 83 active cases, last month we had 35 applications, people who applied. So 2 to 3, and we're
It's time consuming.
yeah, it's very time consuming.
yeah, it wasn't meant to be a derogatory comment, I was just trying to understand the complexity of the picture as a whole.
So all these people kind of work in different units and then have different pieces of the puzzle. So it's really a big puzzle putting assistance cases back together. So everybody has a specialty.
So how many of those get rejected of those applications?
We open about 40% each month. Yeah, about 60% of them are denied. Maybe don't want to comply with employment requirements, drug and alcohol requirements.
So it's basically their choice not to comply.
Drug and alcohol requirements can be just going to treatment up at Credo, could be participating in the group, it could be they recommend an inpatient treatment. So we have people who say, I'm not going to inpatient treatment, and you're not eligible for public assistance. So it depends on what the treatment provider says they need.
So say they go out and get a job, they still receive this temporary assistance for that month or continually,
Well,
or?
for our, like, let's talk maybe the single individual,
Yeah,
household
talk-
of one.
talk a single one.
If they get a job at 12 hours a week at minimum wage, that's enough to close their TA.
Close them all.
Close them up.
Which isn't enough to live on, you know, but, yeah,
Well,
12
it's a
hours
start.
is
They
a step in the
continue
right
to
direction.
get SNAP,
They
right?
get SNAP.
Okay,
They
so
need-
what if they go get a job at Kraft and get hired at Kraft and then they drug test them and find out they're on drugs?
Well, we look at
Oh,
job
I
quits.
know what
So
happened.
if you apply for TA and you've had any job in the last 90 days, we fill out a form that's called a job termination form, and Lisa's unit's gonna contact that employer and find out what happened. Because if you got fired at a job, you're not eligible for
Okay, so
our
then you
temporary
cut 'em off.
assistance for 90 days from the date that they
What
were
if it's
terminated.
what if it's a drug test available?
That scenario, likely they haven't been offered the job, that would be like the county year and that pre-employment offer where we need to verify and make sure you are qualified to take the position, so it might not work against them. But if they continue their TA application, they now definitely are gonna be sent for an assessment at Cradle and Likely, and if they don't wanna do it, they'll self-select out and do some other job.
Okay, so.
So extra applications, please feel free to hand them back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.